Hello everybody and welcome back to the Reprieve Media CIC content today, and we're going to be taking a look today at day 3 of the 2026 Cheltenham Festival. My name is Paul Newman. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us. I'm delighted to say that my co-host and good friend Steve Allpress is joining us today to preview day 3 of the 2026 Cheltenham Festival. It's been a fantastic week so far, but I'm sure Steve has got plenty more offerings for us over the last 2 days on the different course, the change of course, and onto the new course, I think, this week for the last 2 days. Tomorrow, Friday, is obviously the Gold Cup day, but Thursday is a fantastic day of racing in itself. What I'll be doing today is I'll be linking things together really in various live and pre-recorded segments throughout the show. But for now, I will hand over to Steve Allpress, who is going to preview the first race of the day, the Grade 2 Mares Novices Hurdle. So Steve, it's over to you.
Hi there, Paul. Thanks for having me back for day 3 of the Cheltenham Festival preview. We've had a couple of cracking couple of days, and we now move on to the new course, and we look to have some cracking racing here for the third day of the festival, and hopefully we can find some more winners. So here we are for day 3. Right then, on to the opening race on day 3 of the festival. This is the Ryanair Mares Novices Hurdle, a Grade 2 over 2 miles and 1 furlong. I'm going to start off with the horse ahead of the market here, Willie Mullins trained Bambino Fever. Bambino Fever was last year's champion bumper winner. She's obviously got some good horses behind her on that occasion, the likes of No Drama This End, Sortudo, Idaho Sun, El Kairos. So obviously you can see just from the list there that she's already taken some pretty lofty scalps. Since then she kicked off her novice hurdle campaign in middle of December at Naas, where she took on the Gordon Elliott trained Old School Outlaw. She went off 1-4 favourite on that occasion, but the Gordon Elliott mare managed to fend Willie Mullins' charge off on that occasion. It was reported after that the Willie Mullins mare needed the run on that occasion, and this was also at a time where Willie Mullins' horses weren't quite firing, so there were probably fair excuses on that occasion. She did then come back a month later, this time to Fairyhouse. She was long odds on. I think she went off about 1-10 on that occasion, but that time she did come out a nice convincing winner. Reports are that the mare's been working really well since, and she's come forward once again. So obviously she's going to come here with a big favourites chance, and on paper it looks like she's just going to have to beat her rival from early on in the season, Old Score Outlaw. Old Score Outlaw's the mare in here that I actually fancy to win the race. As mentioned, she's already beaten Bambino Fever first time up this year. I don't think it was no fluke. Since then, she's been purchased by JP McManus, and she went to Fairyhouse at the beginning of February, where she took on another Willie Mullins horse in the name of Place de la Nation. She was very impressive on that occasion. It was fairly soft ground on the day, but she jumped and travelled nicely, and she coasted 9 lengths clear of the Mullins horse. She looks like a horse that's got a lot of potential, and but even before that race, there were reports going around that she's not dissimilar to a horse that Gordon Elliott had in the past in the name of Apple's Jade. So just to compare her to that kind of horse just shows you what they think of her at home. She's a walk in the park mare. Lot of potential. She's speedy and jumps well. And for me, she's I wouldn't be surprised at all if she managed to upstaged Bambino Fever once again. So yeah, she's going to be my selection for this opening race on day 3. Old Score Outlaw for Gordon Elliott.
Thank you very much to Steve Allpress there for previewing the first race on the third day of the 2026 Cheltenham Festival for us here at Reprieve Media CIC. A very interesting race in prospect, I think, to open the card on day 3. I'm surprised I've only got 2 in it. I'm following so many young mares at the moment, and some of them are actually quite good, but I've decided not to turn up in this race. Like Flash Away, who won first time out and has not been seen since all season. But yeah, it's an interesting race, this. Very interesting race. I'll touch on my 2 first, and then I'll have a quick... Well, I've actually got an interesting 3 in here. And then I will touch on the rest and tell you what I think of them. Carrick-Warner Spruce would have to be my first selection in the race. There's a video of her already on Patreon. She's actually been bought by New Collections, I noticed. Trainer Declan Queedy normally rides his own horses, but owners Victoria Forever are having none of that. James Bowen straight on the horse. Very good horse, Carrick-Warner Spruce. She was actually beaten second in a Group 1, beaten 5 lengths by Skylight Hustle against the Colts last time out at Leopardstown, when she ran to her best racing post rating over hurdles of 134. She's actually a Grade 3 National Hunt Flat winner. That was the race I actually identified the horse in, 30th of April 2025, summer horse. She actually beat CO Lynn by 4 lengths, running to a racing post rating of 123, which was her best National Hunt form. She was beaten by Bambino Fever in a Grade 2 at Leopardstown, and she's been beaten by Switch from Diesel as well. But yeah, she's got some interesting form. Very interesting horse, I do think. Second behind Amen Kate, first time out. Carrick-Warner Spruce. Declan Queally has ridden her in every one bar 1 start at the moment, when Sean O'Keefe was beaten on her at even money at Down Royal on the 31st of October in the Feathered Lady Mares Novice Hurdle. She's won 4 of her 9 races in her career and won £80,929. She must have some sort of a chance in here. I think that run against the Colts might stand her in good stead. It'd be an interesting race, I think. This. The other one I've landed on in this race is Amen Kate. She was one I did a video on a long time ago, unfortunately, when she beat Carrick-Warner Spruce by 7.5 lengths on debut. She didn't really improve much at all in bumpers after that. She never got any pattern race place form, and the 109 she ran that day at Carrick-Warner Spruce only went up by 5 to 114 in 3 pattern race runs. And I've had more of the same over hurdles, really. On her hurdle debut, Carrick-Warner Spruce hammered her by 13 lengths. Amen Kate was third that day, running to a mark of 110. Since then, she's managed to win a hurdle race, chuck the jockey off, and win a listed race. She's had quite an interesting season. When she chucked the jockey off against Echo in Silence, they turned her back out 9 days later at Thurles in a listed novice hurdle race, the Billy Harney Memorial Maureen Bell Mares Novice Hurdle Race. And she defeated Corinthia by 2.25 lengths on that day. But she only ran to a racing post rating of 123, which was a best hurdle form, but I do think it leaves her a lot to find in here, I must say. The other one I've got an interest in the race, I'll touch on later in my Any Other Business section, is Place de la Nation, the Gigginstown horse. I wouldn't be surprised if that ran well either, but there's some interesting horses in here. The champion bumper winner from last year, Bambino Fever, the horse who won the bumper last year, has turned up in here. She's had 2 hurdle runs, beaten behind Old School Outlaw, who reopposes here, first time out. And then she managed to beat Cornelienne at 1-10 on her last start. Old School Outlaw has done nothing wrong at all. She's won all 3 over hurdles this year. The Walk in the Park gelding. 2 of them over hurdles, and 1 was a bumper race, a listed bumper. She actually won a Grade 3 novice hurdle on her last start, beating mine, Place de la Nation, by 9 lengths. I was hoping that day that mine had clinch her video, but she was battered all over the track by this Outscore Outlaw, who ran to a mark of 137 that day. Interesting horse for Mark Walsh and Gordon Elliott. Charme de Faust is very lightly raced. She's only raced once in this country, where she beat Dawn Coming. Impossible to gauge her potential, but it's not really. I've looked at the damn side of it. I couldn't really see anything at first glance, but impossible to rule out for Connections without any shadow of a doubt. The same with a lot of these. They're not mares that I've not looked at. Echo in Silence as well has done little wrong. She's a listed winner. She defeated the champion bumper runner-up Switch from Diesel by 2 3/4 lengths in a listed race on the 11th of December 2025, and she hasn't been seen since. The Doyen sired mare. Very tough race to win on the day. It's always a race normally I do like to see go round. Kingston Hill, I notice, who won the race that Park Princess was well beaten in at Warwick. The Grade 2 race, for instance, a 127 rated horse mare in the UK is 20-1 for this race. It's a very, very tough race to win. Even the Magniers have got one in here, and Brosnan Racing, who owned the bump horse I picked today. Future Prospect by Order of St George, that's one, a 25 runner maiden hurdle and ran to a mark of 132. And that one start, impossible to sort of say the ceiling of a lot of these. Impossible. Amen Kate is a 40-1 shot. I'm looking at the market now. And she is a bit behind a few of them on ratings, I will say that. But it's a very tricky race to call. And that's why most of the time I like to just watch them go round. But unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way will prevail, I have got 2 and possibly 3 to look at in the race this year. Very interesting race. It's not the only interesting race on the day for mares. It's the actual Grade 1 mares hurdle today on the Wednesday. It was a race that is normally run on the first day of the Cheltenham Festival. Totally forgot about the mares hurdle. This year it's been moved to the third day. It's a race really I've not really got a concrete view in this year, but I know that Mr. Steve Allpress loves the mares hurdle, and he's always up for a look at some of these. So I will hand you over to Steve Allpress now, who will take a look at the Grade 1 mares hurdle on day 3 of the Cheltenham Festival. Steve, it's over to you.
Right, on to the Close Brothers mares hurdle. This is a Grade 1 over 2.5 miles. This race is usually run on the opening day of the festival, but obviously this year there's been a bit of rejig with the races, hence why this race is now on Thursday. Obviously Lossiemouth went to the champion hurdle on Tuesday, which has left a very short priced horse in here in the name of Woodhoo for Gordon Elliott. Woodhoo's been a revelation for Connections since running over Timber. She's only been beaten once in 10 starts, and that was to Lossiemouth at Aintree over 2.5 miles last year. Other than that, she's been fantastic. Even in defeat that day, she ran Lossiemouth very close, and it's difficult to see anything really touching her in here. Certainly on this season's form, she's had 2 races this year. She opened her seasonal campaign at Ascot in pretty testing conditions on that day. She finished very strongly and ran out an impressive winner. Last time she wasn't as impressive, but she got the job done. I do feel like the word I'm hearing is that Connections are very happy with her coming into this race. She seems to be in the form of her life, and as said before, I find it very difficult to oppose her here. If you was to look at something else in the race, obviously Jade de Grugy for Willie Mullins is a very good horse in her own right. She was second in this race to Lossiemouth last year, and she was on that occasion the one horse that arguably put it up to Lossiemouth. She did pay the price a little bit in the closing stages of the race, but she did finish second, and for me she is without any doubt the main danger to the Gordon Elliott mare. However, the one negative with Jade de Grugy is she's been chasing this year, And for them to come back over hurdles from chasing, it is a little bit of a negative for me. I think the market have got this pretty right. Woodoo would be my selection for this race, and I think Jade de Gruchy will chase her home. The best of the rest, you can look at probably Take No Chances for the Dan Skelton team. She's a horse that always runs her race, but she's probably just a little bit below this class. So yeah, my selection for this mare's hurdle is Woodoo for Gordon Elliott.
Thank you very much to Steve Allpress for previewing the mare's hurdle there. One of the Group 1s on the third day of the 2026 Cheltenham Festival. Before we take a look at one of the second Group 1s of the day, the Ryanair Chase, I just want to touch on the 2 o'clock, really, the 2 o'clock race, the Grade 2 Novice Chase, which is now a handicap chase because I've happened to stumble across 2 of mine running in that race against the field. I just want to chat about them a little bit. Regent Stroll is the first one, another one sired by Walk in the Park. This one is from the Denman family, out of Pretty Puttons, who I think is out of the dam of Denman. This one is also trained by Paul Nicholls, and it really is a horse that has flattered to deceive. You know, they've had this horse a while, and they've always said it was top class, and I think it's fallen short. It was only a 140 rated hurdler and a 146 rated chaser at the moment. That is after 3 runs already, you know, and it's already been well beaten. 3rd of 6 by Wendigo in a Grade 2 chase on its first start, where it ran to a mark of 146. Over hurdles, the horse was a Grade 1 placed hurdler last year. Despite that low rating, the horse was beaten half a length by Honesty Policy in the Grade 1 novice hurdle at Aintree, where the horse ran to a mark of 140. Before that, it was beaten in a listed race by Fingal Bridge at Exeter on the 9th of February. It won a valuable bumper, a £59,000 bumper at Newbury on the 23rd of March 2024, when it beat Don't Mind If I Do by 5 lengths, running to a mark of 116. But this is a horse that's never won a pattern race. Yeah, it's been a very frustrating horse, and again, it's going off in a graded handicap tomorrow. And I think when Connections bought this horse, they expected a lot better than what they've got. You know, it'd be interesting to see how the horse got on tomorrow. A similar type last year, Coldwell Potter won the race for me last year and trained the same trainer. The other one I've landed on in the race is 6 Mile Bridge. I can't see how the horse is in the race. Fergal O'Brien trained, Megson owned, Afinacia sired gelding. This is a very good horse. You know, it's actually a Grade 1 winner. The horse beat Carla Conti by 5 lengths at Sandown on the 31st of January. The one in to a mark of 157 to defeat Carla Conti, like I said, in the Scilly Isles, is that? Yeah, the Scilly Isles Novice Chase. You know, the horse also was disqualified when it won a Grade 2 at Cheltenham as well in January 2025, a novice hurdle. You know, it's disqualified when it beat Potter's Charm. On that day, it ran to 145. Over hurdles as well. This is a good horse. It's won 6 out of its 10 races. You know, I can't see why they didn't go for the Broadway chase. I really can't. The horse was also 17th in the Champion Bumper of 2024 when trained by Ben Pauling in its early days. But to me, the pressure has to be on now. They've decided to drop their Group 1 winner down in grade and into a handicap. I can't see why they've done that. You know, why did they not run in the Broadway chase? The pedigree of the horse, if anybody is interested, is on the Patreon channel, my Patreon channel. And so is Regent Stroll. Just head over there and look at both of them. Of the others, well, it's not a sort of race I've really looked at many of these, you know. I've not really got an opinion on many of the others. I'm scrolling through now, and I don't Meet Me by the Sea, I noticed was well beaten by Lilamba on its last start. You know, that's rating of around 138, 139, you know. 6 Mile Bridge, we're looking at 157, but people need to remember this is not anymore a level weights race. You know, it really is a horrible race now. The race was a lot better when it was a level weights race, 2.5 miles. And, you know, I managed to win the race last year despite not really wanting any runners in the race. And hopefully the same thing will happen again. It's not really a race I want to look at any horses in, handicap. But I don't place my horses. I've got no say at all over where they turn up, unfortunately. And 2 of them have turned up in this race. Right, we're going to get back on track now and look at some proper Group 1 racing, I think. And we're going to turn our attention to the Grade 1 Ryanair Chase, one of the 3 Grade 1s on the day. And I'm going to hand you back over to Steve Allpress now, who is going to take a look at the Ryanair Chase. Steve, it's over to you.
Right, now on to the Ryanair Chase. Grade 1, again over 2.5 miles. We've got a warm order favourite in here, and this is one of my bankers of the whole festival in Factor File for Willie Mullins. He'll be ridden by Mark Walsh. Factor File was a winner in the Brown Advisory several years back, and then last year he won this Ryanair Chase in emphatic fashion. He's coming back into this year's renewal in top form, winning last time out at the Dublin Racing Festival over 3 miles. That's something he didn't do going into last year's festival. But obviously he's that year older now and a bit more stronger, and I think he's a horse that's going to be very, very hard to beat. He did have a good run on seasonal reappearance, just being touched off by Gaelic Warrior over 2.5 miles. He then went to the King George on Boxing Day. Very disappointing on that occasion, but I think there's genuine excuses. I think the way he was ridden kind of held up at the back there to try and get the trip. He had a wall of horses in front of him, and I just think it didn't pan out for him on the day. Some are saying the ground was a little bit against him as well, but I can't really see that because I think last year in the Ryanair the ground wasn't too bad, and even the Brown Advisory the year before the ground wasn't too bad either. So I don't think ground's an issue myself. I just think it was just a run that you can put a line through. However, obviously you've got to go on what you've seen recently, and his last run was probably his best effort to date. He won the Irish Gold Cup, beating Gaelic Warrior and Galloping Deschamps, and he looked very impressive. And he's going to come into this Ryanair Chase, and the opposition not going to be the strongest either. You're going to have Hartwood in the lineup, who he's already beaten. Banbridge has been a little bit disappointing at Cheltenham. He was in last year's Gold Cup and ran disappointing. This is probably Banbridge's best trip, but he's at the age of 10 now, and he's probably seen his best days. Willie Mullins has Imperial Pass in here. He was a Turner's Hurdle winner several years ago, but he's not really shown the same kind of form since, although he has won the odd race here and there. So yeah, Factor File, there's nowhere else to go and nothing really else to say about this race. Factor File, if he comes with his A game and maybe even his B game, he should get the job done here. He's 4-6, 8-13 currently, which to me, I wouldn't say it's big, but he might be a fair bit shorter than that on the day. But yeah, unless he runs, unless he throws in a real bad race, I really can't see how he won't be winning this race. He's a very solid horse, and he's a class act. So yeah, Factor File is my selection, a strong selection in the Ryanair Chase.
Thank you very much to Steve Allpress for his look at the Grade 1 Ryanair Chase on day 3 of the 2026 Cheltenham Festival. I'll just take this opportunity to thank Steve personally. Every year since Reprieve Media CIC has incorporated, he has been there for us with his preview of the Cheltenham Festival. He attends the festival regularly every year if he can. He was there on the first day. I think he was telling me he'd been 28 times in his life, I think, and had missed 3 since he started going through illness, COVID and foot and mouth. Really does love his racing, and it's an absolute pleasure for me to bring all his views to you every year at the Cheltenham Festival. thanks again, Steve. It's always much appreciated. The Ryanair chase for me really is just unless I've got I've got a horse that's fallen short of the Gold Cup or has proved a bit slow for the Champion Chase, then I've got one in the Ryanair, haven't I? It's not really a race I look for to get involved in. I'm looking at novice hurdlers, novice chasers really, and bumper horses, and they end up good chasers. I do follow them and watch them go round, but I do enjoy them. And that's really the case in this race with my old mate John Bon. It's been an absolute pleasure to watch him go round in his career. Connections really are just starting to step him up in trip. He's run over 2.5 miles a few times. He actually beat Protectorat over that trip over at Aintree in 2025. And he also beat Pic Dory last time out. Multiple Group 1 winner at his best, easily a 175 rated horse. But suddenly now the horse is getting on a bit, 10 years old. But he is coming back on the back of 2 Grade 1 victories in his last 2 starts. There's out of the rest, obvious form chance for same owner, Ireland's biggest gambler, with the odds-on favourite Factor File, who stormed home in the in the Punchestown Gold Cup, the Irish Gold Cup at Leopardstown, where he beat Gaelic Warrior by 5 lengths, put him well in his place. That's unusual to do that with Gaelic Warrior. That was a superb performance. And Steve touched on, he won the race last year as well, running to 177, beating Hartwood by 9 lengths. If he runs to that, then he will be very hard to beat on the day in what otherwise what looks like a great spectacle. Factor File, I'm sure on the day will be very tough to beat. But I have to chance John Bon in here. It's my old mate John Bon. I follow my horses all through their career to level stakes when I can and when the price is right. This is one opportunity that I've got to get on the great horse, and he'll either win or he won't. Either way, it's been an absolute pleasure to watch the horse go round in his career. And so that leads us now onto the feature race of the third day of the 2026 Cheltenham Festival, the Stayers Hurdle, the long-distance hurdle over 3 miles, some established veterans and some young upcoming pretenders going to post this year. I will hand over now to my good friend and co-host, Steve Allpress, who is going to preview the Stayers Hurdle, the feature race of the day. And then he will be back later for some selections as well. So, Steve, it's over to you for the Stayers Hurdle. Thank you very much for taking a look at the race. And, Steve, it's over to you.
Now on to the feature race on day 3. This is the Paddy Power Stayers Hurdle, Grade 1 over 3 miles. We've got a lot of old warriors coming back here for this race. The likes of Tierpu, who's won the race 2 years ago. He's also been runner-up twice in this race. And we've got last year's champion Bob Ollinger at the age of 11 looking to retain his crown. And we also have quite a few young pretenders in here. The likes of Honesty Policy for Gordon Elliott, Cabral du Matin for Dan Skelton, Marchantou for Emma Lavelle, and we've got the Enigma, which is Ballyburn for Willie Mullins. We also have the Nicky Henderson trained Impostoir that never runs a bad race, and then we've got a few horses at bigger prices that are respectable horses in their own right, but probably horses I wouldn't consider winning this race. I'll start with the horse that I fancy most for this race, and this I do think the ground has a big bearing on this race, because I think where Tierpu is a horse that really wants dig in the ground, I feel some of these younger rivals, the likes of Cabral du Matin, Marchantou and Ballyburn, probably would like better ground to be seen at their best. My selection for the race is Marchantou. I saw this horse at the very beginning of the season, running at Cheltenham. It was just in a Class 2 handicap, so a a fair bit below the level which is required to win a Stayers Hurdle. He then went to Haydock, very disappointing, on very bad ground on that occasion, and Haydock's quite a tight track, so I don't think that played to his strengths at all. He then had a bit of a break and came back in beginning of January on New Year's Day at Cheltenham, again in a handicap. However, he seemed back to his best that day, and he looked like a horse that stays very well, and he's a horse that jumps well as well. And this is where I kind of cottoned on that. I think he's one of these horses, a bit like Paisley Park was, that's just starting to come into their prime at just the right time. He then went to the Trials Day at Cheltenham at the back end of January, and he took on Nicky Henderson trained Impostoir. He was getting weight on that occasion, but once again he took another leap. He took another leap up, and he beat Impostoir on that occasion by 7 lengths. I thought he's very, very progressive, and I just feel if this horse can step up just a few more pounds on what he showed last time, he's going to be a big player in here. The one asset this horse has that you need to win a Stayers Hurdle is stamina. You need to be able to stay. Obviously, you're not going to see him anywhere close to the pace, but I just feel, as you know, from the time they start to swing in off the bend, this horse is going to really come into his own, and I can see him staying on very strongly. Whether he's good enough to win, I'm not quite sure, but I do think he's one of these horses that might surprise a lot of people, and for that reason I'm going to make him my selection. He's quite a nice price at the moment, but I'm not going to let that put anybody off. Yes, he does have to make a little bit more of a jump to make grade 1 level, but I do think he's open to the improvement, and his stamina is going to stand him in good stead. So yes, Marchanteau's my selection for this race. Just going on a couple of the others in here. Ballyburn's another horse that I've always been a big fan of. He has been a little bit hit and miss over the last couple of seasons. Obviously, he won the Turner's Novices Hurdle, very impressive, 3 years ago now, and obviously the world was at his feet then. He went novice chasing, and although he did win a novice chase and then went to the festival as a warm order favourite last year, he didn't seem to take to fences as well as I thought he might, and since then he's reverted back to hurdles. He made a very good reappearance at the very early season where he took on Tierpoo in the Hans Grace over 2.5 miles. Obviously that race is a little bit short of what Tierpoo needs, but Ballyburn ran a cracking race that day, only going down by a nose, and he stayed on very strongly, which made me thought that stamina wouldn't be an issue. However, next time he took on Tierpoo once again, this was over Christmas. I think he was very disappointing. There was a few antics in the parade ring, and I think it also showed once on the track. He travelled fair throughout, but he did make a couple of mistakes, and when push come to shove, he was well beaten. And on that occasion, Tierpoo was very impressive, and Bob Ollinger ran on pretty well for his seasonal reappearance in that race too. So, going through that form line, you wouldn't really give Ballyburn the chance to reverse form on Tierpoo, but Ballyburn is one of those horses that doesn't always show everything, and if he puts his best foot forward, he could be a player here too. Obviously, I've mentioned Tierpoo, a former champion. He's got the best form in the book. Drying ground would be a concern for me, so you do have to monitor the ground with him. Honesty Policy, he looks like a horse that's improving. He's only 6 years old. He ran a fine race last time. He was beaten into third place by Impostoir just before Christmas in the long walk hurdle, but he was running on very strongly at the finish. And, you know, with a little bit of improvement, I can't see him far away. I've obviously mentioned Bob Ollinger, the current champion. He's getting on now. And although I think he's a tremendous horse, and I'd be a little bit disappointed if one of these younger ones couldn't get the better of him. Cabral du Matan, he's an interesting horse. He looked very impressive last time at Cheltenham, but that was over 2 mile 4. And I just wonder, he's very keen going type, this horse, and I do have my questions on him, whether he'll quite get the trip. He's got a lot of speed and runs very keenly, and they're going to have to try and switch him off and come with a late run. That's my take on him anyway. Very talented horse, but I'm just wondering is maybe he's a horse that will be more suited to 2.5 miles. But yeah, this Stayers Hurdle, it's going to be a cracking race. You know, there's a good 5-6 horses in here that you wouldn't be a surprise to you if you saw them winning. Tierpu's the one that's been there and done it. And he's still at the age of 9, so it's not impossible for him to win again. But as mentioned, the drying ground might be an issue. But for me, I'm going to be looking at one of these younger horses, and I'm going to be going with Marchantou and Ballyburn as the two I'll be playing in here. But Marchantou will be my number 1 play. I like the horse, and I think he's improving, and the rumours are that he's working very well at home. So, yeah, he's my selection for the Stayers Hurdle, Marchantou.
Thank you very much to Steve Allpress for previewing the feature race on the third day, the Stayers Hurdle. And I agree with Steve, it looks a very interesting race this year, full of fascinating contenders that Steve touched on there. It is impossible to rule a good few of these out. Steve is 100% right. You do need plenty of stamina in this race, and ideally previous form in the race as well is always handy. But to me, I've only landed on one horse this year. My horses by this stage are well exposed. I like to pick them up in novices really and take those races out when they're unexposed. This horse is relatively unexposed, and he will be my selection in the race, and that horse is Ballyburn, my old mate Ballyburn. Trained by Willie Mullins and owned by Bartlett and Manessa. Side by Flemensforth, out of a dam called Old Moon. This horse looked to have the world at its feet, didn't it? When it was romping home in novices hurdles by 13 lengths and running to marks of 166. But since then, it's all gone downhill for the horse, it's fair to say. The horse has never really reached those great heights. The horse raced 5 times over fences and never reached his hurdle mark, reaching a mark of 160. I thought he was vulnerable last year in the Sun Alliance, and it did prove so. And he was also, again, proved me right again by being well beaten by Champ Kiley at Punchestown after Cheltenham. You know, the horse did win a Group 1, beating Quote Park by 5 lengths at Leopardstown at the Dublin Racing Festival of 2025. And that was easily, I think, his best chase performance. Since this season, connections have tried to reinvent him into somewhat of a staying hurdler. The horse was raced twice and finished second and third, beaten by Tierpu both times. And like Steve said, the first run offered encouragement, the second run, not so much. You know, but to me, I pick my horses on pedigree, and this horse is a rep from the same family as Dawn Run. You know, so this horse, Dawn Run was one of them rare horses that won the Gold Cup and the Champion Hurdle. So this horse is defying them somewhat. They do not know what trick this horse wants or what discipline this horse wants. You know, I do not think that since their novices hurdle season, they are none the wiser. My only surprise is that they've not tried to make him into a champion hurdle horse. That's about the only thing they haven't tried, isn't it? Really, looking at his campaign, you know, connections are really must be pulling their hair out. You know, the horse has obviously got limitless ability. I'm going to say it because we saw the horse go round as a novice hurdler, you know. but he has not reached those levels. Is tomorrow the race where he comes back? Will he stay the trip? Will the horse stay the trip? There's so many unknowns around this horse, Ballyburn, in this race. Not what I want to see heading in to a Stayers Hurdle. You've got horses in there up and coming, like 6-year-old Cabral Mathan, who's looking like the favourite at the moment with Tiapu, who has won the race before and has been behind Bob Ollinger in the race before as well. Bob Ollinger has turned up. You've got the rapidly improving Marchand 2, who's gone from 127 to 155 in less than a year. Absolutely fantastic performances from that horse. Last year's winner, Bob Ollinger, is coming back for more, aged 11. JP McManus has got 2 interesting runners. Honesty Policy, who beat My Regent Stroll last year, and Impose Trois. There's some interesting horses in this race, but it is a very, very tough race. Very tough indeed. But I am hoping that Ballyburn can somehow, if the penny drops, he will lap these. I'm certain of it. There's not many horses in here that have ran to his mark that he was reaching as a novice hurdler. There really isn't. Tiapu would be the only one, and you've seen that he's beaten the horse twice. But what a fantastic race in prospect, and I'm looking forward to seeing this. I'm looking forward to Ballyburn tomorrow because he's one of them that I've identified as a good horse, and he's always gone off so short that it's not giving me much of an opportunity to get the horse on side. I'm looking at him now, and the horse has gone off no bigger than 7-4 in his career. We're looking at a price tomorrow of around 6-1, and he'll either win or he won't. And it'll be an absolute pleasure to watch anyway. I can't wait to watch it and cheer him home. Hopefully people will get a run for their money like they got with a Final Demand today. That's all they can ask for when they get a fair price, is they get a run for their money. Tricky race, tricky race, I think. Right, but I will be back with my Any Other Business and my selections after Steve Allpress. But for the last time on day 3, I'm going to hand you over now to Mr. Steve Allpress, who is going to run you through his nap and each way selections for the 3rd day. And then I will be back to wrap up business in the same fashion. So, Steve, it's over to you.
Now on to my nap and each way selections for day 3. We'll start with my nap selection, which is Factor File in the Ryanair Chase. I've been with him the last couple of years, and I see no reason to oppose him this time round. I think he's coming into the race in great order. He's got the best form in the book, and it's going to take a mishap or an underperformance for him not to win this race. So yeah, for me, Factor File is the nap selection. The each way selection is going to be, I'm going to do it in the Stayers Hurdle, and I'm going to go for Marchand 2 for Emma Lavelle. It's a competitive lineup. You've got Tiapu and Bob Ollinger ahead of him in the market, and probably rightly so. But as mentioned in the preview, I do think that he's a horse that's improving, and I'd pretty much be confident he's a horse that will finish in the first 3, although I wouldn't write him out of winning the race too. So yeah, Marchand 2 is my each way selection. That's all from me for day 3. Thank you very much, and I'll be back for the 4th and final day, Cheltenham Gold Cup Day tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much there to Steve Allpress for giving his selections on day 3 of the 2026 Cheltenham Festival. Right, before I give my selections, I'm just going to touch on any other business quickly, because there is a couple of horses that I want to mention quickly, so I will do that now. The first one I want to talk about is going round in the opening race, the 120. And they're both Gigginstown horses, actually. The Place de la Nation, owned by Willie Mullins, side by Mars Marvel, out of Liberalis. I mean, this horse was actually 5th in last year's Triumph. 5th out of 17, beaten 4 lengths by Ponyross. So it was a 133 rated hurdler before it headed into this season. You know, it's a decent novice already. It hadn't won last season, you see. Hasn't improved at all this year. It's won 2 egg and spoon races, though. So the horse has lost its novice status for next season, and it was put well in its place. Beaten 9 lengths by Old School Outlaw last time out, when I was hoping that Plastil and Nacion would do to Old School what Old School did to her. Because I've seen the pedigree of this horse, Plastil and Nacion. It's a nice horse. It's actually related to a horse, a 154 rated horse called Quai de Bourbon, sired in 1919. And that used to be trained by Willie Mullins. I mean, obviously I've not had a proper good look at this horse yet because it hasn't earned my time. But and I only had to click back another 3 or 4 dams before I was finding horses called 4C that were placed in Irish derbies behind Commander-in-Chief. You know, in the 1993 Irish Derby, 4C, trained by John Ox, was placed in the Irish Derby. So this is a very interesting line. I've not had a proper look at it because the horse hasn't earned my time. So it's only a shell regarding pedigree, as a lot of these on the cusp horses are. But yeah, you know, that was an interesting horse, I thought. And hopefully she runs quite well tomorrow because she's not one I've totally ruled out. And the other one is going round in the last, the 5:20 at Cheltenham, the Kim Muir for amateur riders. And it's her male mate, the Enabler, Gordon Elliott side, 7-year-old, sired by Walk in the Park out of Nanny Stone. This is another one on the Denman line. You know, I do tend to try a lot of these. You know, Den Woman is the second dam of this horse. She's Denman's sister. So, very interesting horse, the Enabler. It's a handicap now, though. Could this horse be well handicapped? Well, it ran to a mark of 143, according to the Racing Post, 3 starts ago, when it beat a horse called Talk in the Park in a £12,000 novice chase at Fairyhouse. The horse was beaten 12 1/4 lengths by Kitzbühel on debut, where the horse finished 3rd, and Kitzbühel has since come out and won the RSA today. So the form of the horse isn't too bad. Well beaten by Kappa du Pike and Argento Boy in 2 Group 3 races on his last 2 starts. But he didn't really disgrace himself. And the handicapper I've noticed has given him an official rating of 140, which is £12 more than his official hurdle mark of 128. You know, he's already ran higher than that, 143 3 starts ago. I mean, if he puts his best foot forward here, he is absolutely thrown in. I do think that at the start of the season, if you asked me, would this be a 150 rated chaser at the end of it, after running 128 over hurdles and looking at the pedigree, I'd have gone yes. You know, the horse is 7 short at the minute. You know, he has fallen a little bit short of where I wanted the horse to be, the Enabler. But he has to have a chance in there, surely. The 5:25, the Kim Muir. But yeah, neither of those horses will be my selections. My 2 selections today, again, rather like the first 2 days, will just be the 2 that are not racing against any other horses I'm watching. But what 2 horses we've got today? 3:20 at Cheltenham, the Stayers Hurdle. I'm going to select Ballyburn in the Stayers Hurdle. And in the 4 o'clock at Cheltenham, I will be selecting John Bon in that race. A quick recap of Steve's selections before we go. Factor File in the 4 o'clock at Cheltenham, the Ryanair Chase. And Steve's each way selection was Marchand 2 in the Stayers Hurdle, trained by Emma Lavelle. A fascinating day's racing, I think, in prospect. I'll just thank you very much to Steve Allpress again for your contributions on the 3rd day. I think I can think about wrapping up this 3rd day now and letting us all get on with our lives and prepare for the racing. It's been an absolute pleasure to cover the first 3 days of the festival. We hope to be back on the last day, but we never know what the future holds, as I will always say. But if everything is equal, I'm sure Steve and myself will be back to take a look at the 4th day. But for now, I will bid you a fond farewell. Take care, everybody. Look after yourselves and your loved ones. Enjoy the day if you're taking part and watching the Cheltenham Festival. And if you're not, have a fantastic day doing what you enjoy doing. Take care and goodbye.